Three brothers from the same family, three very different budgets. The V70 Elite is expected to land between 45 to 50,000 rupees. The X200T comes in at 60,000 rupees and the X300 comes in at 75,000 rupees. On paper, the X300 is the obvious king. But how much better is it than the X200T? And can the Vivo V70 Elite actually punch above its weight? In this video, we are breaking down exactly what that extra 15,000 or 10,000 rupees gets you. And if you enjoy such deep camera dives, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to TechHook. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the camera hardware. The X300 leads with a 200 megapixel main camera with OIS, backed by a 50 megapixel ultrawide and a 50 megapixel 3x telephoto, again with OIS. This is the most ambitious setup here, no question. The X200T keeps things balanced, a triple 50 megapixel camera across the main, ultrawide and 3x tele, with OIS on the main and tele. No headline numbers, just consistency. The V70 Elite is clearly built to a tighter budget. A 50 megapixel main, a 50 megapixel 3x tele, both with OIS, but an 8 megapixel ultra wide. And yeah, you feel that downgrade. On the front, the X300 and the V70 Elite both get 50 megapixel cameras with autofocus. The X200T drops to a 32 megapixel sensor and skips autofocus completely, which feels like a very odd compromise at this price point. Now, to make things a bit fairer for the camera comparison, all daylight shots were taken with HDR off and Zeiss's Vivid mode enabled. In good light, all three produce vibrant, detailed photos, but once you zoom in, the differences are obvious. The X300 is the sharpest by a clear margin. Even though all three bring down to 12 megapixels, that 200 megapixel sensor simply captures more detail. The X200T cranks up the colors more. Blues pop harder, contrast is stronger. The V70 Elite looks flatter next to both. Check the sky here. The X300 keeps it realistic. The X200T goes a bit too blue. The V70 Elite plays it too safe. Ultrawide was predictable. The V70 Elite's 8 megapixel camera just can't keep up. Between the X300 and the X200T, the X300 is sharper and more accurate, but keeps shadows darker. The X200T is brighter, flatter, adds a slight pink tint to the sky and often ends up looking more pleasing. Switching to the tele-lens, the pattern stays the same. Now, the X300 gets a teleconverter kit, but for this comparison, we're not considering that to give the other phones a fair chance. At 3x, the X200T brightens things up again. It looks good at first glance, but it's clearly flatter. The X300 is darker and more contrasty, especially in the shadows, but it's also the most true to life. The V70 Elite actually does well here. It stays closer to the X300 than the X200T in overall rendering. With human subjects, nothing really changes. The X300 looks like it's crushing shadows, but that's how the scene actually looked. The V70 Elite handles shadows fairly well, but completely shifts the color of my shirt. As for the X200T, it misses both the shadow depth and the shirt's color. At 5x and 10x, sharpness is surprisingly similar across all three. Color consistency is where the gaps show up. Even at 20x, detail retention is impressive, with the X200T slightly edging ahead. But once the sun goes down, things get interesting. In low light, all three main cameras perform really well, but the X300 starts flexing. It's not just sharper, it also handles tricky lighting much better. In another scene, the V70 Elite goes a bit soft. The X200T stays close in sharpness, almost matching the X300, but it darkens blues so much that they nearly turn black. This is where the bigger sensor advantage really shows up. Ultrawide is where the V70 Elite struggles because of that 8 megapixel sensor. Colors and lighting are handled really well, but the resolution just isn't there. Look at that white markings on the red barricade. On the X300 and X200T, they're clearly visible. On the V70 Elite, they're almost wiped out, like the algorithm just washed them away. Moving back to the tele, all three hold details really well. Sharpness is solid across the board. The X300 gets colors and shadows right, the X200T stays very close, while the V70 Elite goes slightly warmer and darker, but performs better than expected. At 5x with a human subject, all three are strong. The X300 leads, the X200T keeps up, and the V70 Elite doesn't fall apart. Even at 10x, shots are still usable. The V70 Elite does go a little flatter and slightly green, but for the price gap, it's doing a solid job. Now, portraits are always going to be good. The bokeh looks natural, depth feels real, and edge detection is clean on all three. The X300 captures this subtle lens flare that adds a cinematic touch. The X200T stays flatter with lighter shadows. And once again, the V70 Elite ends up closer to the X300 than you would expect. Selfies are where things get really interesting. The X200T doesn't have autofocus on the front, and weirdly, it doesn't even let you zoom in or out. The X300 and the V70 Elite give you both. Now you'd think that would matter a lot. Well, honestly, not really. All three phones take great selfies. The X200T sticks to its flatter look and adds a slight green tint. The V70 Elite leans a bit yellow on skin tones. The X300 slightly underexposes but absolutely nails that color balance. And here's the twist. In portrait mode, the X200T, even without autofocus, actually has the cleanest edge detection here. Now, videos. The X300 can shoot up to 4K at 120 fps, while the other two cap out at 4K 60. To keep things fair, we locked all three to 4K 60, HDR off with standard stabilization. In daylight, the X300 looks the most polished. Balanced colors, stable footage, very refined. The X200T pushes colors a bit harder, but the stabilization is buttery smooth. The V70 Elite gets colors right, but you do notice the occasional micro jitter. In low light, the price gap really shows. The X300 looks genuinely cinematic, clean, controlled, almost film-like. The X200T holds up well, but the V70 Elite struggles to keep things under control and falls completely flat. The front camera video is a bit mixed. The V70 Elite goes darker and adds yellow. The X200T fixes exposure but shifts skin tones pink. The X300 also runs slightly dark, but it keeps skin tones mostly natural. So after all of that, is that extra 10-15,000 rupees actually worth it? If you're a content creator and your phone helps pay the bills, then yes, easily. The X300 gives you real creator tools. Log video, manual focus, 240 fps slow-mo, plus a proper flagship processor, a flagship display, and a big battery. It's the full premium experience. If you're not a creator and just want a phone that takes great photos and videos, the X200T is actually more than enough. It even gave the X300 a real run for its money, and that says a lot. And the V70 Elite, this one surprised me. For its price point, it holds up really well. When you look at the 25 to 30,000 rupees jump to the X300, it's really hard to complain. You're still getting a 1.5K AMOLED display, an aerospace grade aluminum body, a Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, and a massive 6500 mAh battery with 90 watt charging. So let me know in the comments below. Would you spend that extra 10-15,000 rupees on the next step up? I'll see you guys in the next one.